Welcome, my curious friends, to another descent into the shadows of science. Picture this: a crowded theater in the early 1800s. A lifeless body lies stretched on a table. The audience murmurs with anticipation. A man steps forward, wires in hand, connecting strange clamps to the corpse. He adjusts his device, turns a dial, and suddenly, before your very eyes, the dead man twitches. His jaw quivers, his eyes snap open, his limbs thrash violently. For just a moment, it looks as though the dead have returned to life. This was no sorcery, no resurrection. This was the work of Giovanni Aldini, an Italian scientist who believed electricity could bridge the gap between life and death. His electrifying demonstrations would shock Europe, inspire Gothic literature, and blur the line between science and spectacle. Today we'll dive deep into Aldini's world, his bizarre experiments, the science behind them, and the legacy that still lingers in medicine and culture. To understand Aldini, we need to begin with his uncle, Luigi Galvani. In the late 1700s, Galvani was dissecting frogs when he noticed something strange. When touched with a metal scalpel near an electrical machine, the frog's legs twitched violently. He concluded that animals carried their own kind of electricity, what he called animal electricity. This idea was revolutionary. Electricity wasn't just a force of storms or machines. It was part of life itself. Galvani believed this vital spark might even be the essence of living beings. Europe was captivated. Poets, philosophers, and traveling performers all embraced the spectacle of twitching frog legs. Even Goethe and Coleridge wrote about galvanism, but not everyone agreed. Galvani's rival, Alessandro Volta, argued that it wasn't animal electricity at all. It was the metals creating the spark. Their debate raged across Europe until Volta invented the voltaic pile, the world's first true battery, in 1800. And this invention gave Aldini exactly what he needed: a steady, controllable source of current. Born in Bologna in 1762, Giovanni Aldini was deeply shaped by his uncle's discoveries. Unlike Galvani, who preferred theory, Aldini was bold, theatrical, and eager to show the world what electricity could do. By the late 18th century, he was traveling Europe as both a scientist and a performer. Frogs no longer satisfied him. He wanted something bigger, something that would prove electricity wasn't just a parlor trick, but the very key to life itself. And so, he began experimenting on corpses. Aldini's first public demonstrations often involved animals. He attached wires to severed ox heads, making jaws snap shut and eyes roll into their sockets. He revived motion in slaughtered sheep, causing their limbs to thrash long after death. But he didn't stop there. In Bologna, he sometimes gained access to freshly executed criminals. With electrodes attached to their severed heads, Aldini could make the dead grimace, scowl, or appear to scream. Witnesses described these as ghastly parodies of life. To Aldini, this wasn't morbid entertainment. He argued these experiments helped unlock the secrets of the nervous system, and importantly, he believed electricity had medical potential, not just for the dead, but for the living. Aldini experimented with what we might call early electrotherapy. He applied mild currents to patients suffering from melancholy or depression, claiming successful treatments. He also tried reviving people on the brink of death, those who had nearly drowned or suffocated. In one case, he reported bringing a man back from apparent carbon monoxide poisoning with careful shocks. Strange as it sounds, these early attempts foreshadowed real modern medicine. Defibrillators, electroconvulsive therapy, and resuscitation science all trace their roots back to these experiments. But Aldini's true fame would come from one electrifying spectacle in London. On January 18, 1803, Londoners gathered for a gruesome scientific event. A man named George Forster had been convicted of murdering his wife and child. After being hanged at Newgate Prison, his body was delivered to Aldini for demonstration before a large audience of doctors, officials, and curious spectators. The scene was unforgettable. When Aldini applied electrodes to Forster's face, his jaw quivered and twisted into grotesque expressions. His eyes opened suddenly, staring blankly at the horrified crowd. When current surged through his limbs, his arms flailed so violently that assistants struggled to hold him down, at one point striking an onlooker. The Times of London reported on the event, noting violent, almost convulsive motions that convinced some witnesses the man was on the verge of revival. Others fainted outright, unable to bear the sight. Though Aldini explained it as muscle response, rumors quickly spread that he had nearly reanimated Forster. For the public, it seemed electricity might truly bring back the dead. Only 15 years later, Mary Shelley published Frankenstein. While she never named Aldini directly, the parallels are striking. Shelley's father, philosopher William Godwin, had written about galvanism, and the debates around electricity were widely discussed in intellectual circles. In 1816, during her famous summer at Lake Geneva with Percy Shelley and Lord Byron, Mary participated in late-night conversations about science, life, and death. Out of those talks came her ghost story of Victor Frankenstein, a scientist who reanimates dead flesh with electricity. Given Aldini's widely publicized corpse demonstrations, it's very likely his work helped shape her terrifying vision. In many ways, Aldini became the real-life Dr. Frankenstein. Aldini wasn't dismissed as a sideshow performer. In fact, his work earned him praise from the highest authority in Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1804, Aldini was awarded the title of Knight of the Iron Crown of Lombardy by Napoleon for his contributions to science and medicine. In Parisian hospitals, he demonstrated electrotherapy treatments for mental illness. One report claimed he successfully treated a farmer suffering from severe melancholy by applying electric currents to his head. Though crude and experimental, these efforts made Aldini a respected figure in medical circles, not just a macabre showman. Aldini's experiments didn't just provoke gasps, they fueled one of the great philosophical debates of the age. What is life? Vitalists believed life contained a special essence, a soul, or vital spark that could never be replicated mechanically. Mechanists believed life was purely physical, a machine of flesh and nerves that science could eventually explain. To vitalists, Aldini's failures proved something immaterial was missing. To mechanists, his twitching corpses were proof the body was nothing but wires and currents. This debate, soul versus science, was at the heart of early 19th century thought, and Aldini stood right at the crossroads. Aldini's curiosity knew no bounds. He tested electricity on asphyxiated animals trying to restart breathing and circulation, decapitated ox heads, making them bite down with terrifying force. He experimented with the preservation of meat, claiming that shocks could slow decomposition, a bizarre prelude to modern refrigeration research. Some experiments bordered on the absurd, others hinted at genuine medical potential, but all fed into Aldini's reputation as both brilliant and disturbing. By mid-century, the galvanism craze faded. Scientists realized electricity alone could not restore true life. Muscles could twitch, but consciousness could never return. Still, Aldini's work had lasting influence. His demonstrations advanced neurology, informed psychiatry, and inspired literature. His medical reports contributed to the slow development of electrotherapy. He died in 1834, but his reputation lingered. Part pioneer, part ghoul, part legend. So who was Giovanni Aldini? A visionary scientist bringing electricity into medicine? A macabre showman, shocking corpses for fame? Or the man who helped give birth to Frankenstein's monster? Perhaps all three. In Aldini's hands, electricity was both terrifying and full of promise. His experiments may not have resurrected the dead, but they electrified imaginations across Europe. From Napoleon's court to Mary Shelley's pages, his sparks echoed through science, medicine, and culture. And even today, when we use defibrillators to shock hearts back to life, we're carrying on the strange legacy of Giovanni Aldini, the man who shocked the dead. This has been Dr. Pox's Medical Mysteries. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to comment and share. Tell me, would you have dared attend one of Aldini's demonstrations? Or would you have fainted in horror with the rest of the crowd? Until next time, stay curious, and maybe keep your wires away from corpses. This is Dr. Pox, where the truth is stranger than fiction.